October 19th, 2021 Board of Zoning Appeals meeting to order. I'll start with a roll call, starting to my left.
Brenda Hampstead.
Todd Patel.
Todd Chernick.
Jason Cole.
Stephanie Butler.
Kim Keller.
And note that Don Kurt is absent this evening. If you would please stand and join us for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Unless there's any discussion, I would make a motion to approve tonight's meeting agenda as published.
Second.
Is there any discussion? All those in favor of approving tonight's agenda as published, say aye. Aye. Opposed, say nay. Passed unanimous. I would also make a motion to approve the September meeting minutes as published.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor of approving the September meeting minutes as published, say aye. Aye. Opposed, say nay. That also passed unanimous. We'll move into item 6 on our agenda, which is consideration of primary variances, of which we have 3 cases tonight. I would note for the public that this meeting is being recorded and broadcast, so you'll see some times tonight where we'll move to the display, and that's for your benefit as well as for those who may be joining remotely. The Board of Zoning Appeals is a quasi-judicial board comprised of resident volunteers of the City of Milton. The board is charged with hearing requests for variances from the standards of the zoning ordinance and appeals of administrative determination. With regard to decisions on primary variances, the board's basis for decision is provided by these 4 considerations. A, relief if granted would not offend the spirit or intent of the ordinance. And B, there are such extraordinary and exceptional situations or conditions pertaining to the particular piece of property that the literal or strict application of the ordinance would create an unnecessary hardship due to the size, shape, or topography, or other extraordinary and exceptional situations or conditions not caused by the variance applicant. And C, relief, if granted, would not cause a substantial detriment to the public good and surrounding properties. And D, that the public safety, health, and welfare are secured and that substantial justice is done. With that, I would ask staff to please introduce item V21-22, 2640 Bethany Creek Court.
V2122, address is 2640 Bethany Creek Court. Requested variance is to allow existing house to encroach 8 feet into the rear setback. The site is a 1.03 acre lot on east side of Bethany Creek Court in Bethany Oak subdivision. The property is zoned AG1 and is located in the rural Milton overlay district. Per section 64-416D, city requires a 50-foot rear setback. The plat for this subdivision was approved in 1995 and shows a 50-foot rear setback for this property. It's shown in Exhibit A. Exhibit B is showing the site survey submitted on August 25, 2021. It shows the house 42 feet 7 inches from the west property line, that is equal to 7 feet 5 inches of encroachment. The applicant is requesting this variance to bring the existing house in the compliance with the current zoning ordinance. No new modification or permit is requested by the applicant at this time. Exhibit C is showing the pictures of the house. On October 5th, 2021, DRB met and had following comments. DRB recommends approval of this variance. Staff recommends no conditions at this time. And here's the site plan for this property. can be seen that from the rear property line, the house is at 42 feet 7 inches.
And Shuba, can you also address what looks to be the concrete drive or parking pad? And that does not,
Yeah.
is not considered an encroachment?
No, it's a concrete pad it's not this setback is for building line, vertical structures and not for the concrete pad.
Okay. Are there any questions for staff? Okay, if there's no questions for staff, I'd ask the applicant to come forward and present your appeal, which we do have your letter of appeal in our packets as well.
Good evening. I'm Sanjay Sarao, and we've been living at this property 2640 Bethany Creek Court since 2010. We bought the property in foreclosure. So at the time of closing, we were informed at that time that we couldn't go with the title insurance company that we chose. And the reason cited was the fact that the house was not in compliance. So that's the first that we knew about it. And we had to go with the original title company that titled the property to be able to complete the transaction. So we finally decided that we need to bring this into compliance, and that's what we're applying for. As far as we can tell, the original structure was constructed in 1995 at the time of the original development, and we have not made any additions to it. The 7.5 feet roughly would entail most of the garage and most of the upstairs bedroom that's above it. So the application today is basically to bring an existing structure into compliance.
Okay, are there any questions for the applicant?
I've got a question.
Sure.
Do you have any plans to make any future improvements in the area where the encroachment's happening in the
No,
future
not
at some
really.
point?
We actually are applying for this variance in case we plan to sell so that we don't have a title insurance problem. Because we don't know if the original company is still in business.
Okay. Any other questions for the applicant? All right, so at this point in the process, if you don't have anything further to add, we'll ask you to have a seat. We'll see if there's any public comment in favor or against your application. Then you'll have a chance to make a closing comment if you prefer, at which point then we will address any questions that we have, and then we'll reach a motion.
Thank you.
So if you take a seat for a minute. Do we have any public comment to speak in favor?
No,
Do we have any public comment to speak against?
no.
Okay, if I can't pronounce your last name, Mr. Sanjay, do you care to make a closing statement? Okay. Are there any questions for the applicant or for staff? Okay. With that, I'll make a note that the public comment is closed, and I'll open the floor for a motion and a second.
I'll make a motion on petition V21-22-2640 Bethany Creek Court to allow the existing house to encroach within, if it was 7 feet, 5 inches into the buffer area per the plan from Solar Land and Engineering dated 3/25/10 and received by the City of Milton Community Development on August 25th, 2021.
I'll second.
Okay. We have a motion to approve and a second. Is there any discussion? I'd make note of the applicant's appeal letter. They've stated very clearly how this application meets our 4 considerations, which I concur with their appeal letter and their points in reaching the threshold for all 4 of our considerations. Is there any other discussion? Okay, all those in favor of approving V21-21 per the site plan from Solar Land Survey Company received August 25th, 2021, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, say nay. That motion passed unanimous. Thanks for being well prepared this evening. The next item on our agenda is V21-23, 13705 Brittle Road. Would staff please present?
V2123 13705 Brittle Road. Requested variances are: 1, to allow the barn to be built less than 100 feet from the property line. And second is to allow an existing accessory structure to remain in the rear building setback. This site is a 6.386 acre lot on the east side of Brittle Road in Summit View Farm subdivision. The property is zoned AG1 and is located in rural Milton overlay district. Per section 64-416A4, the city requires a new barn to be 100 feet away from all property lines. Per section 64-416I, the accessory structure can be in the side or rear, but shall not be located within the minimum yard. The property currently has a house, a pool, a storage shed, and a driveway that goes up to the rear of the house. This is where a new barn is proposed, measuring 42 feet by 42 feet. Exhibit A shows the location of the proposed barn and an accessory structure in the rear. The proposed barn is more than 100 feet from north, east, and west property line. However, it is 57.39 feet away from the south property line. Therefore, the part 1 of the variance is requested. Exhibit B is showing the site view with the existing tree buffer around the proposed barn. The details of the new barn are shown in Exhibit C, and the existing wood accessory building also can be called storage shed near the east property line is 28.31 feet from the rear property line. The minimum rear setback required is 50 feet for this property. Therefore, part 2 of the variances is requested. On October 5th, 2021, DRB met and had following comments. DRB recommends approval of the variance. Staff recommends that the architecture of the proposed barn to be approved by the Community Development Director as a condition if the board chooses to approve this variance. Maybe I'll use a small one, since this is too big.
Can you zoom out just a little bit more so we can see the existing accessory structure at the rear? There you go. Thank you. Okay.
Are you done, Shuba? Shuba?
Yes.
Are you done talking?
Yes, we have a comment.
Oh, yeah. So I just want to let the Board of Zoning Appeals know that staff is in the midst, is going to be going to a community zoning information meeting and then Planning Commission November 17th, and then council on December 20th. We're proposing to do a text amendment to AG1 zoning district to allow certain size, smaller barns, approximately 2,000, 2,200 square feet. I'm still finalizing the verbiage, proposed verbiage to allow barns housing animals to be just within the agricultural, outside of the agricultural minimum setbacks, i.e. 25 feet to the side, 50 to the rear. And so that's a text amendment we're working on, which kind of dovetails into what Mr. Reese is presenting to you tonight in this scenario where it's a smaller type hobby barn. And that's what the city's trying to encourage people to utilize the properties that are left, if they would like to have animals, to make it a bit easier than maybe currently. So obviously, if it exceeds a minimum size, they would still have to comply with the 100-foot setback. So just wanted to give you that information because it does relate to this request. But
So was staff's pursuit of this text amendment, was that something that was initiated by city council? Requested by city council?
I think indirectly from trying to encourage, preserve large lots and to encourage equestrian type uses. So no, didn't come directly, but it just came from trying to encourage the preservation of the larger lots. So.
Okay, thanks for offering that.
So he would qualify in 6 weeks.
Correct, right.
Whether,
But his,
so this is kind of,
Well, assuming that council
yeah,
accepts
assuming
the
that they
text
approve
amendment.
it, but again, that wouldn't be till December 20th. And I believe Mr. Reese's client wants to, keep on going as soon as possible. We all know with the different delays and
well, just
everything
so
going on.
if we were to deny it, not saying we would, but if we were, that wouldn't carry impact on the ruling for the 20th, right?
No.
In other words, it wouldn't be grandfathered in as if this property has to stay with 100 feet.
I'll confirm that is correct.
I'm just saying he might want to
if the-
withdraw
Right,
if
right.
that was the case, if he'd get it anyway.
Your denial would not prevent them from taking advantage of a change in the code.
And that's
Correct.
If
That-
it, if
that's
it
what I'm-
became more
that's what I was-
favorable to them, they would be able to take advantage of the favorable change.
Okay.
Right. So that was just a
That could be
comment.
clarified?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. I was just going to give him the opportunity to withdraw if that was the case. That
We'll hear from the applicant here in a minute.
Can I have the attorney clarify another point? So if we were to approve the variance and, or later in November when city council, if they approve it, would that variance just go away? Or
No,
what's
it
the
would,
status
it
on
would
that?
still be of record. It may be unnecessary. They may have even more beneficial provisions in the new code, depending on what they adopt. So they would, in essence, they would have the better of the variance or the new code.
Thanks for clarifying.
Before we ask the applicant to come forward, can you put the aerial Google view from page 2 of 11 on the screen? It helps give a reference to neighboring properties as well as some of the screening that currently exists or doesn't.
Might want to
I'm not sure why there's a glare. Perhaps
Change
the applicant has something electronic, I don't know, we'll see. All right, that's better, there you go. So tying into the existing driveway that goes around the house, at the rear is where they're looking at putting, if you want to, we'll ask the applicant to state exactly where they're looking at locating it. Yeah, for some reason, we're getting a significant glare. Okay, there you go. Okay. With that, would the applicant please come forward, state your name and address for the record?
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, I'm Scott Reese, Brumlow Reese and Associates, doing business at 13685 Highway 9, Milton, Georgia, 30004. I'm here tonight representing the Shillingford family in their application for a variance to allow a structure housing animals to be closer than 100 feet to the property line. So the Shillingfords bought the property roughly a year ago when they relocated from the UK and bought in what was, they were under the impression, equestrian community. When we developed the subdivision some 25, 30 years ago for Virginia Nickerson, that was the intent. The covenants required blackboard fences and all, and it was developed with that thought in mind. An equestrian community, the minimum lot size in the subdivision is 3 acres, and most of, at least 50% of the lots are 5 acres or larger. And it was the intent was, excuse me, to be in an equestrian community. I disagree that we have to have a variance, but that's we're here through the pathway of least resistance. So I'm going to put the Milton ordinances and try to state mine. So this is the ordinance that we're speaking of, and it states exactly, for property with a single-family dwelling being the principal use, structures housing livestock, which may be located in the front, rear, or side yards, provided that the structure must be located at least 100 feet from all property lines and at least 150 feet from any occupied structure located on any other property. We meet the last part. The 150 is no problem. So that statement is livestock. So your daughter's gerbil in your house is safe. I think we can all agree that it's not, it states livestock, not animals. Then here is the Milton definition of livestock. So livestock, including but not limited to, so alpacas and llamas and zebras, and when we had the kangaroo farm, would be considered in this if they're like animals being raised in a commercial agricultural environment. So I'll read through, and it's got cattle, calves, swine, hogs, goats, sheep, and rabbits. But you will note that horses are specifically not named in that, and I think that is definitely on purpose because Milton has a special ordinance for horses. So horses. All structures for the shelter of horses in all districts except the Ag 1 shall be at least 100 feet from any lot line of any residentially zoned or used property. So we are in an Ag zone property, and that's where, but the city realizes that, not that, and that's where the initiation, there is, it could be open to interpretation, I suppose. I disagree, but that's why we're here. Path of least resistance. Hopefully you guys see the logic of the situation. We're not proposing a commercial horse barn with 20, 30, 40 horses. They need to be they need to be at least 100 feet from the property line. This is for the daughter's personal horses. The location on the site plan was a previously graded pad that is situated there where the driveway is. I don't know if the topography shows, but it's the aerial shows that area was prepared at some point for a structure.
You need to zoom out a little bit for us to see that. Or slide it. Thank you.
Okay, so the driveway is shown there. It's situated in the house. We've got the plans, Tim, Brian, the renderings are for, so it's, what we want in Milton, the design. And I know part of the condition is, and we're completely fine with community development director reviewing the plans. And then while we're here, You'll notice the structure in the back. I have the aerial photograph that I provided is dated 2010, so that we know the structure has been there at least 11 years. As far as we know, there've never been any complaints from any of the adjacent property owners. The city sends notice to all the property owners. We have not been contacted with any problems. We have one neighbor that provided a letter for affirmation. The other ones, typically, unless they're your good friend, if they're in, if they don't want it, they're typically speak out. If not, we typically don't get anything.
The neighbor in support, can you give us a reference?
It would be the southwest. So it would front on Brittle Road.
Yeah, I just wanted to have a
David
reference.
Campbell name, I think, or Campbell name. The other property, Mr. Drake, his property is for sale. And as you can understand, he's not really, he's not against it, but he's not necessarily ready to provide letters while he's in the market.
The reason I ask is the homeowner on the southwest would appear to be the closest occupied structure.
It's very close between those two. They're almost equidistant.
Do you have a rough distance or a specific distance?
They're greater than 200 feet.
Thank you. Okay.
So that's the gist of it. We're here trying to get them their building where, their daughter can get the horses on site instead of boarding them somewhere else. So that's, I think I've pretty well gone through my spiel on why this is the intended location. It gives the daughter easy access to the horses. We're more than 150 feet away, and we feel like we meet the letter of the law. So that being said, I'll be glad to try to answer any questions. Otherwise, I think my presentation is done.
I do have a couple questions.
Yes, sir.
From the drawings you provided, it does look, as we can see, there's existing infrastructure, i.e. driveway access
Yes.
to this location. So there would be no further land disturbance other than for the 42 by 42.
Right, and it's roughly graded now. So no tree removal, no anything, just go on that pre-existing pad.
If that structure were to be moved further back and more to the center of the property, it looks like there is septic fields.
Septic field behind the pool, and the topography is such that we're going to have to level out a spot and bring a drive into it. So there's going to be a substantial difference in land disturbing activities between the two.
The structure is roughly 1,700 square feet, 42 by 42.
Down that, now it's going to have side sheds that are not included in this, but we gave.
Shed
the
roofs?
plan.
You're speaking
Yes,
of
shed roofs.
Okay. I'm now looking at the location, the proposed location relative to visibility and screening from surrounding properties. It does look like that's a fairly screened area of the property.
Yes, there are, there's a tree barrier along the property line to the south. Now it's kind of centered on the property line, so there's kind of, some of the trees are off and on. So I can't take, my owner can't take credit for those.
Right. However, moving again back and more to the center of the property would be less screened and therefore more visible.
Yes, that is.
And perhaps part of what is intended to be a pasture for these.
Yeah, it's the way this is configured now, the existing paddocks, I don't know what the glare is coming from, but anyway, the paddocks would stay the same. The existing grass would stay, whereas in other locations, we're going to have to redo paddocks, and all the infrastructure to the barn, everything would have to change.
Okay, those are Oh, intended use, I think you specified in the appeal letter, but just so everyone's clear, this is not for any commercial use?
No,
it's
no,
for
this is for the
Personal-
daughter's personal horses.
recreational use?
Yes. Very large pets.
And you stated the nearest occupied dwelling is more than 200 feet?
150 feet. It's 220 or 230 or something.
Are there any questions for the applicant?
Okay. Looking at the plans for the actual structure,
Yes.
do you have the overall height on that?
I
Going
do
to the
not,
weather vane? Looks like it's going to be close to maybe 30 feet.
you know, that, from aesthetics, everyone wants a steep roof. Does it have a,
Well, I'm just doing the dimensions of the first floor is 12.4, and then that's,
I'm sure it's. a
it
12.
almost goes to the top before the cupola at the top. So you're looking at
Roughly
28
28.
at the very top.
I mean, we
so
would be controlled by the height ordinance in ag zone property. We would
40
have,
feet.
we would have to be under it. And I'm sorry if I was given these architectural plans and
It's worth putting those up just so the public also has at least an idea of what is contemplated.
so this is the front elevation, which would be facing Brittle Road. Rear. Basically a mirror image. Side.
You'll want to flip that. Hopefully you don't build it that way. There you go. Perfect, Mr. Reese, perfect. So that's the side, right and left.
And though you see those shed roofs that we were talking about earlier.
Which would be coming off the front and the rear.
Yeah.
Okay. It does look from this, it's also contemplated on those shed roofs to have a gutter
Yes.
in terms of runoff concerns?
So this will require a individual site plan for construction. And we will have to address water quality. Now, any new construction in a standard subdivision that has detention ponds with stormwater quality and management and detention area, we have to handle any additional impervious via either dry wells or gutter disconnects or something. And that will be addressed in the individual civil site plan that will be required before the construction of this. So that's one of the city's requirements now, I guess, to meet ARC stormwater management.
Okay. Any further questions for the applicant before we move into public comment? Okay. Do we have any public comment?
No.
I would make a note, just so that it's clear, we do have a letter of support. Can you read the name
David Campbell.
and address?
Address is 13685 Brittle Road.
And they are in support.
Yes. I also got a call from Guy Dreck, the property next to this property facing Bethany Road.
Southeast?
Yes. So he just inquired and he was in support as long as the new barn is more than 50 feet from the property line.
More than 50, okay. And in this case, the nearest point is 57
Yeah.
and change, okay. Okay, that's good information. And there's no public comment against,
No.
okay? With that, Mr. Reese, you have an opportunity for a closing.
I'm good. Would you like to answer any additional questions?
Are there any additional questions for staff or the applicant before we move into a motion? Okay, I'll make a note that the public comment is closed. and I'll open the floor for a motion and a second.
I'll make a motion to approve the applicants to approve the variance that they're seeking. Reading over. The proposed barn is less than 100 feet from the property line. And then the existing wood accessory building near the rear of the property. Approve those two.
Okay, I'll make a second. I'll second that, rather. I'd also like to add a friendly amendment before we move too far into discussion, and that is making clear that condition that staff architect review for the proposed barn shall be approved by the community development director. So,
Do you want to reference the site plan?
in reference, yes, thank you. Since we're there, I'll also reference the site plan, which notes the proposed location
September
from
2nd.
Brumbelow Reese and Associates, received September 2nd, 2021.
Would need to confirm that the motion, if you wanted it as a friendly amendment, or and we can do it as a separate vote, but if you wanted to renew your motion to include those additional conditions.
Since you made the motion, you have the opportunity to accept those as additional conditions, or we can vote on those separately.
I will amend my motion to include the friendly amendment. Is that what you called it?
Sure.
And I'll second it.
Sounds good.
So now we're back to motion to approve V21-23, both Part 1 for the barn to be located less than 100 feet. Part 2, to allow the existing accessory structure to remain with two conditions. One is subject to architectural review by the community development director. And the second condition is per the site plan from Brumbelow Reese dated September 2nd, 2021. So we're now in discussion. I think it's important also to reference our four considerations in this case. The spirit and intent, as I think the staff helped us understand, is to encourage larger lots. This ordinance, I think, would not want to stand in the way of those larger lots and enjoying the equestrian use that our city is promoting and has promoted since its inception. There, I think the applicant identified constraints as well as opportunities based on this current location and in terms of less impact to the site, as well as mitigation exists currently for sightline visibility from neighboring properties. Clearly, there's no negative impact to public safety, health, and welfare by having equestrian uses in this area. If there's no other discussion,
The only thing I'll add to that is we have either written or verbal letters of support from the adjacent property owners that appear to be most impactful in this process.
that's true, and that's our third consideration, is impact to surrounding properties. Thank you. If there's no further discussion, I'll look for your intentions to approve Part 1 and Part 2 with the two conditions. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, say nay. That motion passed unanimous. Ah, there's that letter. Couldn't find it. Okay, the next item on our agenda is V21-24 355 Gunston Hall Circle. Would staff please present?
V2124 355 Gunston Hall Circle. Requested variances to allow reduction of side yard setback from 25 feet to 12 feet 6 inches. This site is a 1.05 acre lot on the south side of Gunston Hall Circle in Providence Lake subdivision. The property is zoned AG1 and is located in the rural Milton Overlay District. Section 64-416C1 requires a minimum 25-foot side setback. The applicant wants to add a garage on the west side of the property, and it is encroaching into the side setback by 12 feet 6 inches. Exhibit A shows the site and the location of the existing house as well as proposed garage. It can be seen that the new garage is adjacent to the existing driveway. The size of the proposed addition is 16 feet by 20 feet. The nearest corner of the proposed building to the west property line is 12 feet 6 inches away. The garage is proposed to have matching building material as of existing garage. Exhibit B is showing the floor plan and the elevations of the new addition, and Exhibit C is showing the site pictures. On October 5th, 2021, DRB met and had following comments. The DRB recommends approval of the variance. If the board chooses to approve this variance, the staff recommends that the architecture of the addition to be approved by the Community Development Director.
And this one gets a little bit confusing. So the red on here indicates the proposed addition. But then in the street view, the red indicates the existing structure, if I recall. There you go. The red is existing, black is new. Okay, are there any questions for staff? One question I'll raise, and perhaps the applicant can address this, I know they have in their appeal letter, is it does seem to be very heavily vegetated along that right-hand side of their property from a street view, but they also indicate the willingness and intention to add additional landscaping between the proposed structure and the adjacent home. Has staff had any review of that, and do they feel that that's necessary? Screening mitigation?
I think the applicant has support letter from the neighbor, which the side that you're talking about. So, and he gave us that upfront, so we did not ask. That question really didn't come to my mind because they had a support letter when they came to apply for variance. They had everything ready.
Okay, well, perhaps we have one of those neighbors here tonight. Okay. Any other questions for staff? All right, with that, I'd ask the applicant to please come forward. If you would, state your name and address for the record.
Good evening. Steve Griffith, 355 Gunston Hall Circle. I'm a resident of that property and been a resident for 25 years. I'm a retired engineer and have been restoring old cars and motorcycles for 50 years. So I'm retired now, and I'm interested in expanding the garage so that I can take advantage of that extra space. The property that you see, this is a close-up of the garage. So you can see the vegetation that you mentioned. As I look at my options to expand, I really only have two options. One's going out the back, and there's a hardship, which I'll explain in a minute, or going to the right. The hardship is I've got a 30% grade at the back of the property. And in addition to that, the construction of the existing garage, HVAC unit, a set of stairs, an electrical panel on the rear wall, which really make going out to the rear impractical. So my only option is moving out to the west side of the garage. This is the west side. You're facing east, so this is the west wall. And it's a fairly open area there. And to answer your question, when I reviewed the plans with my neighbor, I made a commitment to him that any additional shrubbery that he felt needed, that I would be happy to put that in. If you turned around and faced the opposite way in this picture, it's more open than what you could see from the road. I know that you came to the property today and took a look at it, but there's trees there, but they're kind of limbed out about 10 feet up. So by putting some additional shrubbery in there, it'll block that.
Okay.
If we get approval to go forward, and this is what you see from the road. If we get approval to go forward, the houses today are 70 feet apart, over 70 feet apart. And the subdivision is 30 years old, and the houses are pretty far apart. On the east side of my house, they're over 100 feet apart, and behind me, it's over 200 feet. So the only properties that are impacted by the addition would be the property to the west, which you see here.
Is that
And
345?
That's 345,
Okay.
Mr. Jay Walsh, and he signed a letter of support for that. And he would have been here tonight, but he had to attend a funeral. The other individual is my neighbor, Stan Beck. He lives across the street from me. He'll be able to see this from his house, and he's also signed a letter of support. So after the addition, if we put the addition in, the construction of the property, this is a little bit smaller view. Construction of the building will come out to the west side in a dormer fashion, and the treatment, the stucco color, stucco treatment, roof pitch, and shingles will all match the existing garage and the existing house. So you can see a front elevation there on the bottom left and a side elevation there to the bottom right. And requesting the red portion here, sorry for the confusion, is the new addition. The current garage is more than 25 feet away from the property line, and we're requesting up to 50% of the setback. Not sure we'll need all that, but that's what we're requesting. And with that addition, the properties will still be more than 50 feet apart. And because I don't intend to take out all that shrubbery there on the right side, probably 30% of the garage will be, you won't be able to see it from the road because of the large mature bushes that are there now. And so I have two letters of approval from the property owners that are both
We have those as
adjacent.
well.
You have those copies. And with that, can I answer any questions?
Are there any questions for the applicant?
I have a question. So I'm assuming, are there architectural covenants for the neighborhood?
There are,
And,
and I have to gain approval for them, but usually when I've asked for approval through the HOA, they say, come to you guys first. So my intention is I have to apply through the HOA for approval.
okay. And do you have to add any impervious surface?
Oh, yeah. The current impervious surface, if you look on that, you can see it in the right corner. The existing impervious surface is a little less than 17%. And what we're adding is less than 1%. So the impervious surface after the completion of the project will be about 18%.
Okay.
And this won't affect the canopy because there's one small 8-inch oak. The canopy is a 63% canopy. That was determined by the Milton arborist a couple of years ago.
Talking about tree
And-
canopy.
Tree canopy, correct.
Pardon me?
We were just clarifying that you're referring to a tree canopy.
Tree canopy.
Yes.
Yeah, tree canopy. So it won't be materially impacted. It'll still be over 60%.
Okay. That's all I had.
For clarification, the impervious impact allowable on a site is 20%?
Yes.
20%.
20%, and this project, as you noted, would bring it to
About 18.
17.79,
Yep.
since you're an engineer.
Yes, thank you.
Build a pool, okay?
Thank you.
Interested in food.
Okay. The second story has staircase, and you said you're going to continue that as a dormer roof across. The use of that second story, can you describe
There's
that?
a wood shop up there.
Okay, it's not
and-
going to be for living quarters of any
No,
sort?
no,
Okay.
it's not. And the upper part of the new addition will connect to that for storage. It'll be a storage room,
Okay.
which if you see the picture of the garage, you see I sorely need.
Trying to figure out what those cars are. I think I have an idea. Get back to you later, offline.
It's not a Viper.
No, I know that. Okay. Any additional questions for the applicant? So you've seen our order of business. We'll look for public comment, and then you'll have an opportunity to make a closing statement if you care.
Thank you.
I would read into the record that there are two letters of support, as Mr. Griffith has noted, 345 Gunston Hall Circle. Mr. and Mrs. Walsh have signed a letter of support. And 390 Gunston Hall Circle, Mr. and Mrs. Beck have also signed a letter of approval or support. Do we have any additional support?
No.
Do we have any
We
opposition?
do have additional. Is this, No, Mr. Stanbeck is here, but he doesn't want to speak.
Okay. And do we have any opposition?
No.
Okay. So is there anything further you'd like to add before we move into a motion? You're fine? Okay, thank you. Any questions for the applicant or for staff? I noted before we move into a motion, staff is looking for architectural review. And staff was silent regarding any need for mitigation from a landscaping standpoint. Okay. With that, I'll make a note that the public comment is closed, and I would open the floor for a motion and a second.
I'll make a motion to approve petition V2124-355 Gunston Hall Circle to allow the reduction of the side yard setback from 25 feet to 12 feet 6 inches. And we can reference, we've got two plans here. Which one?
They both received on
They're noted
August
as A1
24th.
and A2.
Just say A1 and A2?
Sure.
Okay.
And
Received August 24th, 2021 by the city of Milton. And it's by
RJL.
RJL Architecture. And that recommended condition that the architecture of the addition to be approved by the community development director, and that there should be a landscape review or,
By the city arborist.
yeah, by the city arborist. Exactly. Is there anything to add to that?
I'll second that motion. So just for a quick review, the motion is to approve variance to allow side yard setback reduction to 12 foot 6 inches with the following conditions. One is per the site plans by RJL Architecture received on August 24th, 2021, sheets A1 and A2. That architectural review shall be reviewed and approved by the community development director and landscape review by the city arborist.
I think I need to make a question. What landscaping, there's no landscaping requirement imposed, so I don't know that there's any review to be made.
He's only taking down a 8-foot or 8-inch, 8-foot diameter, 8-inch oak.
So I'm trying to clarify, does the neighbor require, he said he would do whatever he had to do to make sure the neighbor was satisfied with the result of landscaping, but there's no requirement?
Unless staff knows.
Well, this
You're-
would-
You're not imposing
This would leave
one.
it open to, I
Yeah.
think your intent was to leave it
Review
open
by the
to city
arborist.
arborist to review if it was needed.
Well, but the city arborist has no opinion on it other than, that's why the applicant stated that it was upon a vision
It's good
from
faith
his
on the-
neighbor, if his neighbor felt like it needed to be. So maybe if you did it, if landscaping is required, it shall be approved by the city arborist.
If the landscaping is
Who's gonna say it's
required
needed?
by the neighbor?
No, we can't,
By,
Well, if,
we can't impose a requirement that if a neighbor requires it.
Well-
I think you'd have to go off the letter that the neighbor's satisfied with his
okay,
faith
so on the
in
letter of
him doing what he
appeal,
says.
on the letter of appeal, it says additional landscaping will be installed between addition and property line with the adjacent home.
But
So
you
there's
didn't do a
plans.
landscape plan, correct?
Neighbor did not. I just told him that I was planning on adding some landscaping there.
So
So we have a
do,
choice of leaving that condition in, or you can strike it from your motion.
okay.
I get what you're saying, Brenda, but he'd either have to have a plan that we said this is what you will do.
Right, there's not a plan.
There isn't a plan.
There's
Which then
just a
would compel
agreement.
him to having a plan, which is then more time and more cost.
Yeah,
I
When
mean,
this would appear to be something that the neighbors can work out.
yeah, hopefully. I mean, if there's a dispute, there's no. Okay, so should we just, I'll just amend it to strike out the
Right,
the
that condition.
review by the arborist.
okay, and
Maybe just add, make sure adequate, landscaping buffer is provided. Or is that too innocuous?
who's going to do that? And so in the past, we've had a landscape requirement that either staff felt was necessary or the city arborist felt was necessary, and we would condition that. In this case, staff didn't feel there was a need, and the applicants seemed to have a agreement of their own.
It doesn't sound like the neighbor
Is too concerned.
is too concerned with it. He is offering it to the neighbor as a.
No, I
as a-
understand.
As a, you know,
The Walshes are not here, right?
I'd ask the city attorney, in terms of whether we actually strike this as Brenda has raised the motion, or can we vote just on that condition and how would best to proceed?
The motion could be restated without it and withdrawn and restated. Or you could proceed and make an amendment, propose an amendment to strike that condition from the motion.
Which I did do that.
Which we would have to vote on that and then vote on the
Right.
overall motion again. Vote on striking and then vote on overall.
Correct.
Or you could withdraw your motion and we'll open the floor for a new motion.
Which seems to be the preferred.
That's why we have discussion.
Okay. I will withdraw my motion and we'll do this again. I make a motion to approve petition number V2124, 355 Gunston Hall Circle, to allow reduction of side yard setback from 25 feet to 12 feet 6 inches with the condition of the architecture of the addition to be approved by the Community Development Director, and will reference sheets A1 and A2 by RJL Architecture, the site plans received by the City of Milton, August 24th, 2021.
I'll second. Is there discussion? We have an appeal letter from the applicant with some considerations. Regarding our 4 considerations, I think the applicant has clearly stated how this petition meets those 4 conditions in terms of impact to surrounding properties, the topography challenges, public safety, health, and welfare, and the spirit that it would be fitting in this neighborhood for a detached garage, as there are many in that neighborhood. All those in favor of approval with stated conditions, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Good luck with your project. Continue to work with the city staff on your permits and also with your neighbors as you've done to this point. Mustang? Ah, nice. The next item on our agenda is item number 7, which is consideration of appeals and secondary variances. Do we have any?
No.
Item number 8 is old business.
No.
Item number 9 is new business.
No.
One item I would like to raise as a suggestion for staff is we potentially will have some new board members, given some of the elections that are upcoming. If you could be considering training material or training videos that might help new members get up to speed, specifically stream buffers and some of those more common things.
Yes, we'll do that.
Thank you.
Also, I'm working on the calendar, but the New Year calendar for BZA,
Yes.
and we won't have a meeting next month, but I remember last year we adopted a calendar in December, so that won't be an issue. I will circulate the calendar before the meeting.
Okay. Based on, have you looked at the 22 calendar to see if there's any obvious conflicts?
Yeah, no, there's no conflict, except as usual, we will delay 1 week for April spring break.
Oh, because of
Oh, that's
DRB?
DRB. I'm sorry.
B, so that's not us.
Yeah.
so we don't have a
Same
meeting
for
next
you.
month.
I don't know.
I think the bigger point that we need to clarify before we can talk about 22 is it does not appear we have cases for next month.
Correct.
Yes, we don't have. any
So we will
this
not have a meeting next month. We're actually we're not having public comment at this time. In terms of 2022, is there anything surrounding like November? Thanksgiving has been one in the past. Just want to get out in front of it.
So usually.
No, the 3rd will be the
yeah,
6th. It'll be
it's my
November
planning commission that
15th. Will be fine. Okay, so we will be considering a 2022 calendar during our December meeting.
We'll be adopting it.
And you're going to be scheduling in terms of according to January assumptions.
Correct.
Okay. Advertising and all that other fun stuff. Okay. All right. Item number 10 on our agenda.
Make a motion for adjournment.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor of adjourning, say aye. Aye. Opposed, say nay. We are adjourned. Please leave your packet information for open records.